Hello, everyone. Welcome back to I See What You're Saying, the Disciplined Listening Podcast. I'm Michael Reddington, and today it is my pleasure to welcome our next guest, Kevin Basik. Kevin is a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy. Also got his PhD from Florida State. He retired after a 23-year career as an officer with the United States Air Force, with leadership roles up to and including advising senior leaders at the Pentagon. He is the president of Basic Insights, where he spends his time focusing on teaching leaders at all levels of organizations, both in the government sector and in the private sector, how to become leaders of character. He's a great guy, super smart, tons of awesome experience. I'm really excited to share what was a very fun conversation with all of you. We're going to get into all kinds of things like, what are the three components of leading with character? What are some specific things we can do based on science and practice to build and maintain trust? We'll talk a little bit about where leaders get derailed, and he is going to teach me the definition of a new word, Equifinality, and how that applies to leadership and leading with character. It really is a great conversation. I appreciate you all being here for another episode. Thank you so very much. While you're here, please just take a quick moment. Please like the show, share it with your network, certainly subscribe to the show, and please leave us your feedback. Also, while you're online today, please just take a quick moment to check out our sponsors. Please head over to humantel.com. That's where you can explore all of their training options, choose the program that's best for you to begin developing the skill set necessary to understand when people's emotions are likely shifting by identifying changes in people's facial expression and nonverbal communication. Enter the code INQUASIVE25 for 25% off the training of your choice. For the professional interviewers, please head over to certifiedinterviewer.com. That's where you can get all your questions answered about both the International Association of Interviewers and the Certified Forensic Interviewer designation. All you need to know about approval, what you can contribute, what it can mean for your career, and more over at certifiedinterviewer.com. And finally, while you're online today, please check out Inquasive.com. That's where you can learn more about the programs our clients ask us to custom facilitate for their senior leaders, their HR teams, their sales team, and more, to teach them how to encourage people to share their everyday confessions across all of their high-impact conversations. We really appreciate you being here for another week. Thank you so much. So now, without further ado, I introduce to you Kevin Basik. Good morning, Kevin. It is great to meet you. How are you?
I'm doing great, Michael. This is an honor to be here. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time.
Well, I really appreciate it. It's an honor to have you. And as I was getting ready for the conversation, researching your background and the different tracks it's taken, I try to think, all right, so what are some really good questions I want to ask? Maybe we get to them, maybe we don't. And I had to narrow it down and narrow it down and narrow it down and narrow it down. There's so much to dive into. So I can't wait to see where the hour takes us.
Yeah, let's go. I love to explore.
Cool. So with the first question, try to keep it broad enough to get the conversation started. Yeah. And when I look at what I've learned from your military background, from how you work as an educator now, both in the military and in the corporate world, right, there seems to be a through thread that runs through all of it. So I'd kind of like to start there. From your experience in considering what you teach now, what does it mean to be a leader of character?
Oh, man, I love that, because when I described this, originally I got deep in this topic when I was at the Center for Character and Leadership Development out at the Air Force Academy. So I was out there and was in charge of standing up the scholarship directorate. I just got a PhD, and they said, all right, we need some rigor and research and best practice behind some of the claims we make. And at the Air Force Academy, there's signs all over the place saying, we develop leaders of character. And they said, we really don't know what we mean by that. We haven't operationally defined it. And then we need to really clarify, what's the process by which you do that? So with that as the backdrop, here's the three pieces or the three elements of a leader of character. Because God knows, the world doesn't just need more leaders. It needs leaders of character. And if you're a person of character who can't lead, it's great, but there's a missed opportunity. If you're a leader without character, buckle up, right? So there's dangerous. So here's the three things. And every time I say this, again, even corporate audiences go, yeah, that's who I'm trying to be, or that's what I want to develop in my people. So first thing is, a leader of character lives honorably. That is, man, this is about you and who you are while you do what you do. So what are the habits of excellence, the values and virtues that you are just planting the flag and going, this is what right looks like for me. And then I'm going to battle to try and bring that to life through action, right? So a leader of character lives honorably. But it ain't all about you. A leader of character is also somebody who has to lift others to their best possible selves. Now we're in the interpersonal domain, and you've got to tap into, and to get the mission done, you've got to go through the people. And what does it look like to, as Michelangelo said, release the angel in the stone, is to just, create the environment and conditions for people to flourish. And that's, obviously you camp out a lot there, Michael, is in the interpersonal domain. When it goes right, what happened? When it goes wrong, what happened? So leader of character lives honorably, lifts others to their best possible self. But the last piece is, a leader of character has to elevate performance, has to advance the mission towards some greater good, right? Because, you're in a leadership role to get some stuff done. And you've got to create, now we're at the sort of team and organizational level, you've got to create the environment, the culture, the creed. There's certain things that need to be in place for performance to happen. And we don't want leaders who just maintain the status quo. We want people to elevate, to advance. Things should be better because you were here as a leader in your family, in your church, in your community, in your organization, wherever. So lives honorably, lifts others, advances the mission. That's what a leader of character is. And again, I think that's who I'm trying to be. And what I love about the calling I feel I've got is, I'm just inviting other people along the same journey. I'm on the same mountain as everybody else. And the way I say it is, it's a mountain with no top. But brother, it's a mountain worth climbing, because this is who you are for the people that matter. So that's little description there.
And we could probably spend over an hour just breaking those three things down right there. Yep. And I love how you broke it down as you went. Part of it's ourselves, but we can't stay there. Part of it's others, but then you have the team and the organizational level as well. So hitting it at all three tiers.
Yeah. And it's got to go there. Most leadership development says we got to start with you, because you're the baggage that gets brought into the interpersonal and the team and organization. So if you're jacked up, it's only going to be a sort of a progressive dumpster fire along the way. So, and when things get hard, you fall back to what matters, the why, or the values, or who you're trying to be, because you can advance the mission in a way that is out of integrity with your values. And that is not success, and that is not significance.
No, it's not. And advancing the mission, I'm stealing military parlance. Everybody's heard me say before, I didn't serve, but just to keep the conversation going, advancing the mission also, like, in what direction? If I feel like I'm advancing the mission, but not only is it out of integrity with my values, it's out of line with where we're trying to go. Like, yes, I feel like I'm advancing it because this is a profitable direction for me, or it's an easier direction for me, or I get to put it off on somebody else, or make it the next guy's problem. Maybe sometimes, and you might see this too with the work that you do, we find people who are making decisions so they won't be the one who gets the blame.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it goes right, maybe it doesn't. But if it doesn't,
yes, I
can say it's not my fault because. Yes. So all of those things don't necessarily count as advancing the mission.
Yep.
And one of the things, we could dive into everything that you just said.
Oh, man, my brain is going, I'm lighting up like a pinball machine just on what you said right there.
So, well, I'll say this and take it wherever the hell you want. I think I heard you say is part of lifting others is creating the environment and the circumstances.
Yeah. Yes.
And I feel like a lot of times, both from a leadership perspective and a communication perspective, which clearly overlap a lot, but could be a little bit different, setting the environment and the circumstances is not a consideration. So if I have to have I was recently just asked to potentially have a very important conversation with somebody in Ohio, and they wanted me to do it over Zoom. And I was like, yeah. The answer is honestly no. And it's not because I don't think we can't be successful, but to be successful, I probably need to be sitting across a table from this guy. Yeah. And I probably need to be face-to-face and have a length of time together, unscheduled, nothing on either end. There's going to be ups and downs. We need to work through this. So having the contextual awareness to create the environment and set the circumstances to allow people to be vulnerable enough to take
Yes.
the risk necessary to climb that mountain with you is a huge point. I don't know if that ties into where your brain was
Yeah,
going.
absolutely. If nothing else, just understanding what do you gain or what do you lose with all those different dynamics? Because some people I got no choice.
Yeah.
I've got to do this on Zoom or we're remote and I've got to have a tough conversation. Is just you've got to work a little extra. You got to work extra hard to remove some of those barriers and obstacles to vulnerability, to openness, to communication. So absolutely right. And you had mentioned earlier one of the things as far as lifting others to their best possible selves and the idea of blame. And when I ask folks again, and I've asked probably 17,000 people this question. And as a behavioral scientist, I love the fact that I know what's coming. Matter of fact, I got slides built already because I know how predictable this is, but it's important. I will ask people, finish this sentence. If you are going to successfully lead me, you had better blank, right? And there are certain, these are the 4 levers that everybody says, I'm looking for this in my leader. And it, to tip my hand a little bit, it always comes back to trust, and trust is woven through all 4 of the responses. But one of the responses, the third most common response people say is, you better be competent. In order to be trustworthy, I'm vulnerable under your leadership. Are you worth it? I need you to be competent in the arena that matters, in the context that performance is required. Because if I ask you, hey, do you trust me? You're going to go, well, to do what, right? There's a certain context here. So competence, ability is one of the things people say, I need my leader. But if you unpack that and say, but what is that? Is it just job knowledge? No. I need to perceive you as a student of your craft, not a master of your craft. I love the fact that you're always working on yourself and you're sharpening your saw. That, to me, signals strong leadership. Competence is also, among other things, what you do about decisions. Your decision-making competence is wrapped up in this competence thing. Do you make the call that falls to you? Because people hate wishy-washy leaders. And do you own it? If it goes well, or if it goes well, obviously share the celebration. But if it goes poorly, blame is just never a leadership competence. And like you said, I had a former student that became a commander, and he was sharing his reflections. And he said, I've noticed that a reason is why something happened, an excuse is why it's not my fault. And it's amazing how many leaders rush to that second thing. I got to find somebody to blame, or I've got to give you all the reasons why this isn't mine. And it's interesting because in sports, we are disgusted if at an after football game press conference, if the coach is blaming the refs or doing all that, it's not my fault, or man, this assistant coach, you go, get rid of this knucklehead. Get rid of this clown. Own it, dude. We want leaders and coaches to go, that's me. Even if it kind of wasn't, but you own it. You own the environment that you created that caused the decision. So yeah, that blame thing is a big deal, and it can definitely screw up trust in a relationship and in a team and in organization. Absolutely.
For sure. And the flip side too, the stealing credit, the guy who did no work and then stands up and says, aren't I awesome? And everybody in the crowd knows who really did it. So that's eroding at that trust competency as well. Did I hear you say there's 4 levers?
Well, there's 4. So I'll walk you through them, and there's a little trick here. And again, I didn't make this up. The data falls this way, and it falls this way every stinking time. So again, the question is, if you're going to lead me, you had better blank. Brother, I'm asking this question of school teachers, police officers, special forces, general officers, CEOs, doesn't matter. 4th, I like the dramatic reveal. So we go 4 to 1. The 4th most common response is, you better get trust right. They say that because this is a relationship. And there's 2 sides to that coin. And even in their responses, I can see it. And I'll pick at it a little bit and go, you said, if you're going to lead me, you better trust me. Right? That's one piece. Because if you violate that, I'm going to thump you with the micromanager stamp. Right? And I'm going to be ticked off, by the way. You say you trust me and you keep showing up in my chili. You say I've got the decision and you keep changing it. What's up with that? The other side of trust is I'm vulnerable under your leadership. Are you worthy of that? Are you trustworthy? So, we'll explore together in my workshops a little deeper dive onto what makes people trustworthy. But the fourth most common response is you better get trust right. The third most common response is competence, as we talked about, right? I need you to be competent in all those little subcategories there. And well, one of the other things I'll borrow from Brene Brown, communication is part of your competence. And clear is kind, man. If it's maybe clear in your head, but if it's not clear in our head, it explains why there are, missteps, why there's hesitation, why we're doing things that look to you like there's low commitment or buy-in or pushback. No. Maybe it's lack of clarity of expectations. So clarity communications is wrapped up in that competence piece. The second most common response is, you better care about me and the team the way that you should, right? Where's your heart? And if people use language like, I don't think they're sincere. I just don't think they're authentic, or they get an angle. That's all. I'm concerned where your heart is. Is there benevolence, where it should be? How you talk to and about us, how you handle your emotions, all that is wrapped up into the heart thing. Do you know me? Do you appreciate the value I'm bringing to the table? And my wife and I, I've been married for 31 years in a row.
Congratulations.
In a row, brother. And we don't fight much. But when we do, usually one of us doesn't feel appreciated by the other person. Your heart is not as, alongside me. So there's an empathy, there's appreciation thing. So all that's wrapped up in the second most common response, which is where's your heart in this? But the number one response, by far, if you are going to successfully lead me, you had better lead by example, right? You show me what right looks like. Because especially in times of uncertainty, change, in the military, we call it VUCA, of the VUCA environment, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. Tell me that doesn't describe every organization. Yeah. Especially in times like that, there's gaps in the information. And people are like looking around and they're looking at the leader going, fill the gaps for me. Should I be concerned? Are we really serious about this? Or are we just talking a mean game? What are our real priorities given what's happening now? All that ambiguity gets filled by the leader's, model. And the way I say it is, if the video doesn't match the audio, they're going with the video every time. And as a leader, you're the video. As a parent, you're the video. So there's actually 4.5 levers, I say, because those are the four. But when we do the deep dive, the three components of being perceived as trustworthy, and this is in the research, this is the geeky, nerdy side: ability, benevolence, and integrity, which sound a lot like competence, care, and lead by example. So if you look at the list of four, the fourth most common is get trust right. The other three are the ingredients of trust. So trust is literally the top four things that people are hungry for from their leaders. And if any of those are missing, you got an uphill battle.
For sure. And a lot of the conversations we end up having, one of the things we track with, and I would love your feedback on this too, is especially when you talk about leading by example or being operationally competent, maybe come from a finance background, maybe come from an investigations background, an operations background, a technical background, whatever it is. Okay, so those are your table stakes. That's what got you here.
Yes. Yep.
No one's necessarily expecting you to be an expert. And you talked about be a student of the game. Like, you don't have to have all the answers. Right. You just have to kind of be learning, stay with the curve, know where to go get the answers. Be confident enough in yourself to say, great question, let me go find out. So, and
that habit right there, Michael, that vulnerability. Hey, I don't know that. Would you mind teaching me that? Or I'm struggling with this. I may even be a higher power position. But that gesture of vulnerability is a leadership strength. It's a signal of strength. Hey, you're asking my opinion? Yeah, brother, I dig that about you. And the fact that you are working on yourself. Now, nobody wants a leader who's like, I don't know. Eventually you got, okay, what are you doing to try to fill that gap? But, there was a great story in a Harvard Business Review a number of years ago. A female exec came in to a very technical field, and her background was not in this engineering field. And of course, everybody, when she showed up, was like, oh, what do we got here? And she stepped up and said, let me tell you what I know about engineering. But I know how to build a business. And I know that I need your help in order for this business that we're all in to succeed. But what a powerful just acknowledgement and gesture that they went, okay, all right. If you are sincerely wanting our input, we'll help you be great. But it started with that gesture. In psychology, and we call it the norm of reciprocity. Mm-hmm. A first gesture of vulnerability invites the other person to go, well, okay. Yeah. And a lot of times it's, hey, I don't know. Hey, I'm sorry. Hey, I could use your help. I'm struggling with this. Those simple things start the volley and put the ball in play. And I love that about humans.
I couldn't agree more. And to steal another phrase from your background, not mine, I think that vulnerability is really a force multiplier.
Yeah.
That once somebody, and I'm sure you've done this a bunch of times, it's not a unique idea to the work that I do, but even encouraging a leader who's struggling to get somebody to improve at a task. Is it one thing? Is it a system of things? Is it leading other people? Is it understanding a concept? Whatever it is to take them out to lunch, take them out, coffee, whatever, sit down, have a human conversation with them and talk about how you struggled to learn it. Talk about how you made mistakes early on. Talk about how success can only be created through failure in many ways and what your specific failures were. And to steal your words from earlier, if it comes across as sincere, I can't even talk. If it comes across, sincere is now the word that combines authentic and sincere. Like we create words.
It's trending. Sincere is trending. It's on t-shirts now. Bang.
That's what we do. So run with it, steal it, trademark it before somebody else does. But sincere and authentic. Now we are building those bonds at that level into steal everything you're saying. If we're calm, if we're consistent, and if we're making people better, there probably isn't another problem, no matter how technical, that we can't solve. But creating the opportunity and the context for those conversations to come into play is so important, because if the expectations aren't clear, I'm stealing this one too, but getting back to the example you gave, it might look like somebody's giving pushback. It might look like somebody isn't committed. Well, let's go back and look at the lowest common denominator. If I've given 10 people instructions today and all 10 of them appear to be giving me pushback, what's the only thing that those 10 conversations have in common?
And as a parent, I will tell you that I have gotten on my daughter so much about not executing something I unclearly asked them to do. And I unclearly asked them to do it 5 or 6 times. And they kept not doing the thing I unclearly asked them to do. And they were like, yeah, I thought this is what you wanted. Well, no, but you should have read my mind.
Yeah.
That's another problem, So absolutely. The common thread is, if we're pulling out our hair going, what's wrong with these people? Sometimes I don't know what's wrong with these people. Sometimes I have created the conditions that generate exactly what I'm seeing. And I'll tell you this is a really cool concept. Again, we're going in the Wayback Machine here to research in the 1960s, but this idea of the Pygmalion effect. People will rise or sink to our expectations. Mm-hmm. And what the research shows is that is because our expectations prime us to interact with that person in a certain way. If they're your golden child, you set a very different tone than if they're your problem child. When whoever knocks on the door and you will look up and you're like, oh, here we go. Just that has changed the tone. Who are you more likely to give good feedback to? Who are you more likely to give good opportunities to? Who are you more likely to push a little harder? Hey, you're better than this. Come on, man. You got more horsepower. I'm not going to let you off the hook. The best mentors we've had in our life are not the people that just cleared a path of ease for us. It's the people who rode our butts like Zorro because they're like, come on, man. I see something in you you don't even see in yourself. Right? So, and because of that, they brought out the bigger, better version. But, there's the Pygmalion effect and the Gollum effect is people will sink to our expectations. And it's not to prove us right. It's because oftentimes we've created an interaction dynamic that decreases the probability they'll swing by our office for a conversation.
Yep.
That they will speak up comfortably in a meeting, that they will push back because they know what's coming for them. Oh, it doesn't come the same way for this one over here, but I get burned at the stake if I were to say the same thing. So I don't speak up, which now makes the leader think, see, they have nothing to control. They're not bought in. Again, they act the way that I would act if I was treated that way too. So there's a huge opportunity for us. I mentioned a phrase earlier, and I just love the imagery of this. Michelangelo had painting phases and sculpting phases. And in his sculpting phase, someone asked him, Master, how do you create the masterpiece? And his response was, I don't. The masterpiece already exists. I see the angel in the stone, and then I carve until I set it free. And I just love that. It puts the burden on me to see the potential, the beauty, the strength in the person. And then what can I do to manifest that, to bring it to life, to let them see the strength in them. And as parents, I think that's what we're always trying to do is, release the bigger version of our child that they may even be struggling with.
It certainly should be. As parents, as coaches, even as leaders in our businesses, it absolutely should be. And I could derail the whole thing with too many examples of seeing the opposite and just wanting them. My head explodes as I'm watching this happen in front of me.
Yes. But can I piggyback on that just for a second? Because
go.
I saw it in the wild. I was at a conference. I was getting ready to speak in another room, but I had a little bit of time, and I walked by, and it was a gymnastics, like high-end competitive gymnastics and tumbling kind of conference. So you got leaders and speakers and coaches. And I just sat in the back of one of these things just to see what they were going to do. And the speaker said, hey, hit the QR code, go on your phones now, and we're going to create a word cloud of just some words to describe what athletes are like these days. You're working for youth athletes. Describe what youth athletes are like this day. And the words that emerged, the word cloud that I saw populated, I sat there and went, oh, dear God, I would never want to be an athlete in one of those gyms. If they're going in, and I know kids can be frustrating and all that sort of stuff, but if you are saying athletes are, entitled and whining, complaining, it was just a word cloud from the coaches and the leaders going, pieces of garbage. Every once in a while you see something in there like hopeful, eager, optimistic, and I'm like, oh, I want to hunt those folks down.
Yeah.
That's who I want somebody to see that in me, even on my worst days. Because I'm
not going to lie, I kind of want to hunt the other folks down too, but that's with a different end game.
You're just getting a different tone in the different gyms.
No, and it's especially with and we were talking before we got on about your kids and my kids. My son is still pretty young, so I'm dealing with like elementary age sports.
Yeah.
When the kids show up to the field, or the court or the mat or wherever, however they're acting, it's not on them.
Yeah.
Their parents, their teachers, other coaches they've played for in the past. Are they hungry? Are they tired? What kind of day have they had? And by the way, this is also true for adults. If we start taking the context of the situation, and this isn't only isolated to young kids. And the point you made about our expectations is so spectacular because our expectations really are the first filter. Everything we observe gets filtered through those expectations, and then it drives our behavior after that. And if we can be aware that, oh, I expected Kevin to be kind of standoffish and mean, but look at him. He's actually fully engaged. I need to real quick recalibrate and get involved. But if it becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy, you went to the gym this morning, tweak your back a little bit. You walk into my office. Hey, Mike, got a second? I look up and you're leaning against the door with your arms crossed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, here it comes.
Yeah.
No, you tweaked your back this morning.
Yes.
And I don't have the wherewithal to say, well, let's let this conversation play out for 90 seconds and get an idea of where he's coming from and what's going on here. So to get back to that, like situational awareness, contextual awareness, but perhaps the biggest thing many of us can do from a communication standpoint, to steal from you, is elevate our expectations. And if we can stay focused on the outcomes we're trying to achieve, not just short-term, but long-term, how are we trying to get the most out of people, lift them to their highest potential, get them on this topless mountain that we're trying to climb together. There might have been a better way to phrase that than topless mountain.
Topless mountain. No, again, that's some people are like, okay, that's a whole new business model.
We'll see how many negative reviews we get for that comment. But to get them there with us, if we can elevate our expectations and if we can see the potential, if we can see the good, if we can commit ourselves to the end result, to the outcomes we're trying to achieve, then it's easier to stay present and it's easier to justify the mental energy, the concentration, the patience in order to communicate the right way and navigate these situations together.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I do in one of the workshops is we kind of map people across a couple dimensions. One of the dimensions is just, you could probably think of a distribution of folks on how complex is their thinking and reasoning as far as what you do. Some people are always processing and they've just been around for a while. Maybe they see how the puzzle pieces fit together and they see patterns and opportunities and they're on that high end of the spectrum. Maybe they're just that way, or time and wisdom has given that. Other people are on the low end of the spectrum, just going, just tell me what you want me to do, that kind of thing. And then, so you've got that continuum, and then you got another continuum, which is just, how engaged are they? How bought in are they on what we're up to here? And there are some people who are just passionate about this, and other people, it's a very transactional relationship and, again, a spectrum. So you get different categories of folks. And we walk through each one of those and, hey, what do they look like? What do they sound like in the wild? And people are like, oh, I got this. And let me tell you about this people. And so they map them there. Some are more favorable. High is those are your golden children. Low is these are your problem children. And at the end of the conversation, I will say, pick up your pen and just put it on the paper for where you would say you are now, right? And everybody pretty much puts themselves in a high category. I'm a professional and I'm bought into what we're doing and I know how things happen. Think back. Now we're just going backward in time and think over time about different places that you've been. Maybe because you were a little overwhelmed, it was a new position, so you dropped down real low on the confidence and understanding how patterns and systems work. Sometimes it was, you were just a little ticked off or you were having an unhealthy season. So people will start thinking back and moving their pen around, well, there was that one time and then I did that and it was a stretch goal. We had a big victory here. I was, imposter syndrome. So they go back over their career. And then I say, all right, how many of you have moved your pen? Everybody raises their hand. What is the number one factor that caused you to move one direction or the other? The number one factor is it was the leader who was in my life at that time. And how I was treated, how they interacted with me. It pulled me in a positive direction, or it made me ticked off, or I felt like I was alone and adrift and unappreciated. So I offer that up just because if we're dealing with somebody frustrating that just feels like low right now, and that's my, oh God, dog, this person comes in, they're the door leaner. Yeah, here we go again. Just remember, you too have had seasons where you acted a certain way, and there were factors that contributed to that. So if you've got somebody in that low category or high-low category and you're trying to move them, you're the leader in their life. Somebody moved you in a direction. You may have inherited them in the category they're in, or you may have actually led them to that category. So the fact that people move is encouraging. The fact that leadership matters in that movement, that's encouraging. So there's a blessing and a burden associated with that.
Oh, there most certainly is. And to your point, depending on the day or the season, honestly, depending on the conversation,
Yeah.
they could transfer back and forth between blessing and a burden.
Yeah.
To jump even further back in this conversation, you just barely touched on the importance of clarity of expectations and
Yeah.
clarity
Oh,
of
yeah.
communication.
Yes.
And just a few seconds ago, you talked about systems and processes. Like, how
Yeah.
well do you understand? Oh, patterns. I'm sorry, patterns and
Yeah.
processes. Like, someone's been around a long time, they can pick up on these things. For people who have been in a role for a long time, and especially leaders whose technical expertise got them to their leadership position. And
Yeah.
technical doesn't mean IT. You could be a mechanic. You can be in
but
sales.
there's tactical, it's the
Yes.
front lines that, you know how the action is at the front lines. Yep.
Yes. Sometimes when that expertise is what gets us to the top,
Yep.
turning around and trying to develop other people that don't have it yet and don't see it the way we do can be torture.
Yes.
So through your workshops and the work that you do, both on the government and military side and on the corporate side, how do you work to help people really work on the clarity of communications and the clarity of those expectations to make sure, by the way, I've had this problem with my son too, that people understand what we're asking them to do and we have a clear basis of evaluation?
Yeah, what a great question. One of the things I'm going to talk about eventually is what I call the sayback, which is a simple technique. But you're absolutely right. There's the tactical stuff. We made our bones here. This is where the action is. Matter of fact, this is where the fun stuff is sometimes. I talk to special operators, special forces folks, and it's, you're shooting the weapons, you're hopping in and out of planes or boats, and you're doing the stuff. Well, sometimes those people now find themselves into roles where you're expected to lead groups of people like that. Hey, you were a great lab technician. Now we need you to manage other lab technicians. Whole different skill set. Now it's about feedback, accountability, setting expectations, all that, creating a culture, managing conflict. That's whole different box of tools than the tactical stuff. And then the more senior you get, the more strategic you've got to be. And now you're really out of the game. And there's research that's been done primarily out of the Center for Creative Leadership, and it goes back 30, 40 years on management derailment. What is it that causes previously successful people, when put in this next position, to not pull it off? And it happens more frequently than you would think. And the top three reasons are always the top three reasons. And first one is they can't adapt to change, right? The cheese has moved, man. And what got you here won't get you there. And if you are trying to hold on to the good old days of how we used to do things, if the world has changed, you're going to struggle big time. And that's one of them. Second thing that causes management derailment is they can't build teams, teams of people. And it's just, like I said, another skill set that requires cross collaboration and a little bit of management across functions. But the number one thing that causes previously successful people to derail is the interpersonal domain. They can't manage the relationships, which contributes to the team thing, but either emotional stuff or building interpersonal trust, or just, like you said, that one-on-one. In the military, we call it footlocker leadership, kneecap to kneecap. Man, I'm trying to influence you as a person. And if they just are not comfortable with that, they're absolutely going to struggle. So clarity of expectations. I heard this phrase, and I heard it in the context of marriage, and I think it's spot on, but it translates into corporate world too. Unclear expectations are the seeds for resentment, right? Because if you're pissed off or you're bothered, I wish you would do this and you never do this, and oftentimes because you never said that's something you wanted. I want you to read my mind though, and I'm ticked off every time you don't do it and execute it. So to just slow things down and go, here is what right looks like. The sayback technique I heard from a senior non-commissioned officer as I was growing up in the ranks. And it's a simple technique. You see it oftentimes in consulting as well. But the sayback is just, all right, I've given you my expectations. All right, Lieutenant, I want you to go off and do amazing things. If you're fired up, I know you want to show off how good you are. You're going to crush it. But Before you do, say back to me, you and I high five at the end of this if what has happened. Say it back. And it's amazing how you get about 90% right, but it was the 10% that was going to frustrate you. Or you're hearing gaps in what you communicated. You're like, oh, crap. All right. They said the high five comes with this. Oftentimes, my clarification is then, wait, what I'm not hearing you say is there's a difference between can we do it and should we do it, right? Maybe it's because of the optics right now. That would not look good given the government shutdown or given all that sort of stuff. We can legally do it, but should we do this? Let's just add that in there. And if you consider that, high five, who's paying for this? I'm not hearing that in this conversation. So the sayback technique can help you at least understand how clearly your message landed in their head, because they're likely going to have to communicate it to somebody else too. And every time I've been smart enough to slow things down and just say, I think I've explained this clearly. I think the picture in my head landed in your head. Say back to me what you heard. You and I high five if what has happened. And again, I discover over and over again how ineffective I am at communicating 100% of that picture.
Yeah, my son is young, but to jump on the comment you made about your daughters, I can't tell you how many times, especially like the morning routine, I ask him to do something because we're all busy running around the house trying to get out the door, and he goes and does something else. And I'm like, Gabe. And he looks at me and he snaps right back, Dad, I thought you said. And I have to be like, yo, you win.
I did, but what you didn't understand were the many layers of what I was explaining to you.
Yeah. My grandfather had a stroke, which isn't funny as I'm laughing, but he had aphasia after. He passed a long time ago at this point. But after he had his stroke and his aphasia, he get very frustrated when we didn't understand what he was telling us. And he would point at us and yell, I'll leave the swear intro out. But typically it would be introduced with a set of curse words. And then it would be, listen to what I'm thinking, not what I'm saying.
Right.
Because with his aphasia, right, what he was thinking and what he was saying often were two different things. And it wasn't necessarily his fault because of the damage that his brain had sustained. I love the sayback technique and the thing, and I want you to critique what I'm about to say, please. I love that the sayback technique was about the outcome. It wasn't repeat back what I said.
Yes.
Is I feel my bias that perhaps the foundational problem with communication is we were all taught to communicate when we were kids by adults who talked to us like we were kids. Then we become adults and we have to talk to other adults, but we were only ever trained to talk to kids. So then we treat other adults like kids and wonder why shit falls apart and they're mad at us and they don't understand and we don't have relationships. Adults don't like being talked to like kids. Yeah. So if I say to another adult, repeat back what I just said to you, that's going to be parental and condescending. And maybe I feel great, but I'm ruining the relationship. I'm missing the point. Yeah. What I feel like I heard from you was the sayback is the high five is the outcome. At the end of all of this, where are we? And as long as you understand where we need to be, maybe you don't get there step for step the way I would have. Amen. But if it's within the guardrails and it's within policies and laws and procedures and all those things, then great. You got us to the outcome. Yes. So the thing I love about that is it's outcome focused and it allows for building the relationship, saving self-image and idea ownership at the end.
And to do a little military context here, it's effect-based operations. It's or mission intent. As long as we end up here, then I'm like, bro, I would never even thought of following the path you followed. But hey, boom, they are even happier than that customer's happier than I would have made them. Or we had pulled it off with even less resource utilization than I would have. And in grad school, my favorite word that I learned in my master's program was the word Equifinality, which just sounds great in cocktail parties. And all that means is there are many paths to get to the same outcome, right? Equifinality. We get to the final thing, but lots of different ways to skin the cat. That's just, psychologists have to come up with different word for easier concepts. But that sayback is just, I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for the outcome. I just want to make sure we agree on what the outcome is. Okay. And what the guardrails are, like you said. I'd like to throw one more thing. You just triggered this. And in our time together, I just want to make sure that I offer this up. because I think this will be a splinter in your brain, hopefully, that you'll just keep thinking about over and over. One of the best communication tips, advice, hacks I ever received. An amazing leader and mentor of mine, Jeff Nelson. He was a higher ranking officer when I was first teaching at the Air Force Academy in behavioral sciences and leadership. And he said, all right, Basik, you know your stuff. You're passionate about this. You're going to do great in the classroom. But you're also teaching, 18 to 23-year-olds, and they can be knuckleheads, and they can do things that are going to frustrate you. And there will be a moment that somebody does something and you have every right to drop the atomic elbow, right? Before you do, because it's going to hit your hot button and you're going to come in with guns blazing. He said, before you do, just try this. And the first part of it is something that I'm sure you shared a million times and you get it. But there's a couple other pieces and there's a lot of psychology to it. He said, try this on. Hey, help me understand what I'm seeing here. Hey, Jason, help me understand what I'm seeing here, because I got to tell you, it's coming across this way. It's coming across that you may not be as bought into what we're trying to pull off here. It's looking that way. You weren't prepared for the meeting the way that I thought you were going to be, and it's landing like, just a lack of commitment to what we're doing. Here we go. But I know that's not you. Boom. That's the first thing. We've just sort of protected the ego, kept the water warm here. But I know that's not you. You're a professional. You care about this. You're on board. I mean, I'm so lucky to have you on this team. But there's something going on, okay, when I'm seeing this. And I'm probably missing it. And here comes I think this is the golden phrase. And it's unfair to you if I miss this. So help me understand. It's unfair to you if I miss this. There's something that happened there. I'm actually on your side as I'm confused or trying to connect dots here. And I'm trying to create space for you that I normally wouldn't, right? Because I'm all emotional. So it's unfair to you if I miss this, man. So help me understand. And every time, Michael, I've been smart enough to slow things down and say that, there has been something else. And it's something that I'm like, oh crap, if that was going on with me, or if that was my perception of what the dynamics are, I too would be acting the way you are. Or I didn't realize you got tasked last night with something that pulled your attention away from this. Didn't even know that, right? And the conversation is much less defensive and, consulting or adult versus childish. So I think there's something to explore with it. With an expert like you in the idea of communication, here's what I'm seeing. We're going to talk about that, but I know that's not you, right? I'm keeping you at a place that an identity that you want to live up to. And it's unfair to you if I miss this. I believe that creates space for at least the conversation, the communication to be healthy going forward.
Oh, most definitely. And I would argue, not that anybody cares, that maybe 80 to 90% of the battle at least is what you just did. Help them protect their identity.
Yeah.
Like, all too often when we talk about trying to change somebody's perspective or behavior or action or get them to tell the truth or whatever it is, it's like they're traveling in one direction mentally and emotionally. And I'm trying to make them do an abrupt U-turn at a time they're not prepared for it and go the other way.
Yes.
Well, I'm not the behavioral psychologist in the conversation, but that's really hard for people to do in their brain. Like it's not going to happen.
Especially if emotions are involved.
Oh,
if emotions are ramped up, or people are like, what's this conversation about? Is this safe? Am I even safe here?
Forget it. So if we can keep them traveling in the same direction and then let them decide when it's safe and okay to start turning around, now that's when we have a higher odds of getting the answer we need, the commitment we need, the buy-in we need, the education that we need. So protecting the identity, so important. Creating the space, so important. And just trying to force ourselves to stay out of that entitlement trap. Because leaders, we're not entitled to everybody's full commitment, full truth all the time. True. They're entitled to protect themselves and what they believe to be their best interest. So let's use that direction to get to where we need to go. So I love it. Stay in that learning mentality, force yourself to be curious, which I know gets thrown around a lot,
Yeah.
but I swear every time somebody says I've got it all figured out, an angel loses its wings. Like, it's just never true. It's always a never, words we shouldn't use. It's probably never true
Yes.
that we have it all figured out.
Yeah.
So I love all of that. Help them save face and protect their identity. And you talked about slowing down a couple of times.
Yeah.
I do truly believe that time is the enemy of empathy, that anytime we really try to focus on how quickly we resolve a conversation or situation, we are absolutely kneecapping our opportunity to understand where somebody else is coming from.
Yeah.
And to get back to the conversation about trust, the more stress I feel, because now I'm up against this maybe real, maybe an imaginary deadline I set for myself. Now, the more cortisol my brain is producing, and I'm really not open to trusting new ideas and being vulnerable. So because we're recording this on the 250th birthday of the Marine Corps, I will quote one of my coaches who's a Marine.
Hey,
slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Yes.
The more we try to rush something, time is the enemy of empathy. We create more problems. To quote you, the more we slow the process down and help people protect their identity, the more successful we'll be. And who cares if we feel like it takes 10 minutes longer? I guarantee it saved hours. Time in our life.
Yeah. And that's brilliant. That's beautiful. And slow, slow is fast. I love that. We got to go slow to go fast sometimes. It's just, whoa, we got to take a time out. I'm hearing a lot of speaking, but no conversation.
Yeah.
Right. So let's just clear the room. And sometimes you've got to be the goalie now and go, all right, you're going to have a chance to talk, and everybody else hold up, be present in what he's saying. All right. And you said that, what did he just say? I mean, just to slow the dynamics down and clear the noise, that's hard to do too. But, and so often we're talking past each other. But then you layer emotions on top of it, and you've just got this chatter of self-protection and that she's wrong, I'm right, and what about this and what about that? So I heard a great thing. This is an interesting twist, I think, on the slow things down for the long-term benefit. And then we're getting back to sort of organizational dynamics here. Was on a podcast just as a listener with James Franklin, who was the coach of Penn State.
Yeah.
Okay. No longer the coach of Penn State, I believe, but amazing guy. And he said something interesting that challenged me because of the whole trust, if I want to feel trusted, but that you need to be trustworthy thing. He said, if you come onto my staff, I'm totally paraphrasing here. If you come onto my staff, I'm going to let you know early on, here's the expectations. I'm going to slow this down and clarify. I'm going to micromanage the hell out of you, because I'm not sure if you understand our system. I don't want to micromanage you. I want to get out of that business as quickly as possible. But I'm going to be in your chili until you just demonstrate to me, boss, I got it. Great, thank you. Okay, then I can go off and do something. I love the idea that he set that as an initial condition, is don't be surprised if I'm treating you, I didn't bring you in just to let you go. And, yes, you've been a successful coach. That's why we brought you in. But you're coming into a system here. And I just love the idea that he slowed down and said, I'm going to just be much more tactical than I want to be. But here's the reason for that. Here's where my heart's at while I'm doing this. And Adam Grant is an amazing behavioral organizational psychologist. And he often references, doing a double reference here, he references some great work by a guy named Yeager. I don't know if I get his book right here.
That's a triple reference.
David Yeager. How about that? So David Yeager did some research and found out that there's huge power in the statement, or at least the intent of the statement of, the reason I'm giving you this feedback, or in this case, the reason I'm micromanaging you, the reason I'm giving you this feedback is I have high expectations of you, and I know you can meet them. Right? I'm going to push you, but I want want you to know where my heart is as I do that. I see the potential in you. You're going to be a great coach. And I'm going to make it almost uncomfortable to you so that you can release that angel from the stone. So I just, again, I've explained that poorly, but I think there's something to be said for the expectations even of micromanagement can at least be helpful in explaining what our relation is going forward.
If people understand why, and they understand like maybe not the end, but the outcome, the next phase, the next step, the next plateau, what this is getting us towards, then it's easier for them to wrap their brain around it. It's like, if people might not think of it this way, but a lot of time as a leader, for somebody else to have to talk to us, to sit with us, to open up with us, to deal with us, that's like a sacrifice on their part.
Yeah.
It's not easy for them to do. So if we can honor that to a degree with the extra explanation, with the extra clarity, with the extra follow-up, then it pays off. And from one word to another, brother, I love it that you just turn around and pull the book right off your bookshelf. That was a fantastic move. I absolutely.
Oh, don't celebrate that too much, or I'll start doing that like crazy, because I geek out about this stuff.
Oh, I'm your man. People start asking me about books, and I get lost looking at my bookshelf. Like,
How can I not tell you about that? And then there's this thing, and I just read this. Yeah.
15 minutes later, I'm still excited, and they're snoring. Totally get it. Hey, I did want to ask you, and we talked a little bit about this off air before we got started. I'm fascinated by your track and how you got here. So you went to the Air Force Academy, you were in the Air Force, you've done work at the government level in the Pentagon. Even though you're retired, you go back and you're still teaching generals in the Joint Special Operations Group. And at the same time, you're working with executives and leaders in the private sector. So one of the things that is fascinating, I'm double referencing fascinating in the same lead up to a question. I'm fascinated by your background, and I'm also fascinated by common threads. Because I feel like one of the mistakes that we're all capable of making is, well, that's just a military thing. That's just a government thing. That's just a parenting thing. That's just a corporate thing. You've mentioned the word interhuman, or the phrase interhuman communication so many times since you and I have started talking. So what are the lessons that you have learned working literally at the highest level of military operations that apply to corporate and family conversations, or maybe vice versa?
Well, I'll say this just so I don't forget it. And it shows up in the military, and everybody assume it shows up in the military, but man, I see it all the time in corporate worlds too, is something special about being in an elite organization, an elite culture. And there's leadership matters, and people don't mind high standards. They want to be a part of something elite. They will battle and do amazing things to become part of that tribe. But the standards better be consistently enforced, right? When they show up there, that it better be what they were hoping, and that standard of excellence in the organizations where this standard of excellence is consistently enforced. Buckle up, because you've just got a special secret sauce to work with. So one of the things that is a common thread is just when you see a special culture, there's an ethos, there's a deliberate development of, I've gotten into this idea of a creed. Recently, and working with the Medal of Honor folks and all that, there are creeds in organizations, there are creeds in the Boy Scouts, there are creeds all over the place. And I've even worked with groups in athletic arenas, and to include the college football playoff committee. One of my former mentors, he's still a mentor of mine, he oversees that committee that racks and staffs the football team. And he got them together, and part of that team changes every year. So he said, the environment we have to do this in has changed, because this is the first time that there's going to be, 12 teams in the playoff, and everybody's got an opinion about who that should be. So this team needs to be tight. So I said, boss, I think we need to spend some time having this group identify the creed that they have for each other. Here's how we approach our work. Here's our mindset. Here's how we treat each other. Here's what we will never do. Here are the non-negotiables. And to just spend time planting that flag boldly. And if anybody else is ever going to take one of these sacred seats, this should be slid across the table to go, this is how we roll. And if you're not up for this, love ya. There are other places you can go. But welcome to the varsity. This is the show, right? And I've seen other organizations. I've run across some Chick-fil-A organizations, there's a place here in in Charlotte that's a welding and fabrication company that just has that bold commitment, and they are as elite and special forces as the special forces are. So one of the things that comes across is culture matters. It shapes behavior, and you can set that bar high, but you better consistently enforce it. One of the other things that shows up again is that golden thread of trust. If an organization, whether it's a military organization, whether it's at the highest level of the Pentagon, or whether it's an entry-level unit, out in, Montgomery, Alabama, trust is one of the golden threads for effective leadership and effective communications. And I asked the special ops folks to do a little survey before we get together, and I will ask them, what is something a leader has done in the last 6 months that absolutely built trust with you? And then I have AI organize that into buckets. And I'm like, these buckets have nothing to do with special forces. These are just human buckets. I will also ask them, what do leaders do that will screw up a healthy culture? And their responses go into buckets. And I'm like, these buckets matter everywhere else too. So one cool thing in the special forces and special operations, they have what's called the SOF, Special Operations Forces, the soft truths. And there's only 5 of them. And they say things like, you can't just turn us on and build us quickly. It takes a while to build a soft warrior. Don't wait till the emergency to build this. You can't mass produce these quickly. Success in SOF requires non-tip of the spear folks. The support staff is what helps us accomplish mission. But the number one soft truth of these folks, and these folks have all the cool gear and the equipment and the planes and the boats and all that sort of stuff. The number one soft truth is humans are more important than hardware. We can have all the toys, all that stuff, but the mission will not get done if you don't get the people thing right. So the human domain is absolutely consistent across military, non-military, nonprofit, for-profit, doesn't matter.
And so, because they are human things, everything you just said applies to any business, whether it's the welding business, whether it's the nonprofit business, it doesn't make a difference. And of course, we're at an hour and you tell me that you've got a list of things that leaders can do to sabotage corporate culture.
Yeah.
So can you give me a quick couple of things that you see across the board that leaders can do to ruin culture? I can't let you
I
go
will say one of the number one buckets, one of the biggest buckets, and these are the people responding to this, are the senior enlisted leaders, right? So they sit and walk alongside the commander. So they've progressed up, and I'm asking them, what do leaders do that jack up a culture? Number one of the top responses, they don't listen to the people they should.
Yeah.
Whether it's me, you don't have to agree with me, but do you just listen? I'm bringing a perspective that will matter here. Or you're not listening to the folks down at the front lines because you think you got it all figured out. And they are the ones who can most quickly come up with solutions and ideas, and they know where the customer's friction points are, all that. So you don't listen. The micromanagement thing, and people will start doing that. Don't lead by example. Again, we're back to that number one lever. You say the standard is this, you're not holding people to the standard consistently, or you're not holding yourself to that standard. Oh man, that hypocrite button, that gets big. So, a lot of these, again, human things just keep coming back, and it won't surprise you at all, but leaders are still on the hook to deliberately focus on and beat that drum all the time.
It's a tireless task.
Yeah.
There is no end to it. We've had a great conversation. I've got so many questions I didn't get to ask because I knew that we were on the clock, and I know you just got home, and I want to be very respectful of your schedule too. So please, you do great work. You're out delivering workshops. People who have enjoyed this conversation, they want to connect with you. They want to learn more from you. Where do they need to go to continue to learn from you?
Well, I do appreciate that. So my website is Basik. My last name is Basik. Basik, Basik, insight.com. And Matter of fact, it's going. We're about to sort of relaunch the website, but the themes are the same, the phone numbers the same, the websites are the emails the same. So you'll get some nuggets on the website. You'll also get an idea for how I approach the conversations about building not just leaders, but leaders of character, and doing it through behavioral integrity, which is that important alignment between what the leader says they're committed to, their standards are, the values are, and what they do. So that values action alignment is magic, is key.
Well, I'll absolutely put that link in there. I've been to your website to prepare for this conversation, so I can certainly vouch for the nuggets they're going to get right away, even before engaging with you. I really appreciate you taking the time today. It's been great meeting you, and I'm excited to find another way to continue our conversations.
Absolutely, Michael, and I'm a fan, so this will not stop here. Let's keep this journey going, buddy. Thank you.
I'm excited for that. I appreciate it. Take care. We'll talk to you soon. Kevin, thank you for such an awesome conversation. I really appreciate all that you shared, and I love your experience, the integration of all the science, all the research, the practice on the government and military side and on the private sector side as well. Your definition of leading with character, how that applies to all of us, step-by-step process for trust, how to avoid getting derailed. I really appreciate all of it. Thank you for the grammar lesson too. Great conversation, and I can't wait for round 2 in the near future. Thank you so very much. And thank you to everybody that took the time to listen today as well. We appreciate you being here for another week with us. Hopefully you took as many notes as I did and you follow Kevin moving forward. Really appreciate you being here. Before you go, again, please just take a quick minute, like the show, subscribe to the show, share it with your network, and please leave us your feedback. We would love to hear from you. And before you sign off the internet today, check out our sponsors. Head over to humantel.com. That's where you can get all your questions answered, read the research, and learn more about how you can begin to determine what people are likely feeling when their emotions shift by recognizing changes in their facial expressions and nonverbal communication. Pick the online training of your choice. I've done them all. I recommend them, and you can enter the code INQUASIVE25 for 25% off that training over at humantel.com. For the professional interviewers, please head over to certifiedinterviewer.com. That's where you can get all your questions answered about both the Certified Forensic Interviewer designation and the International Association of Interviewers. What can you both provide and get from the association? What can the designation mean for you moving forward in your career? Get all those questions and more answered at certifiedinterviewer.com. And while you're online, please check out inquasive.com. That's where you can learn more about the programs our clients ask us to custom facilitate for their senior leaders, sales teams, HR teams, and more to teach them how to encourage people to share sensitive information under vulnerable circumstances in the face of consequences. We really appreciate you being here for another week. Thank you so very much. Please stay safe, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time.